Every single officer that I spoke to, they say the same exact thing: is I wish more people took matters into their own hands for self-defense, for being armed. I'm like, if the police themselves are saying that I wish more citizens would have guns and do this, I'm like, why don't you listen to the people that are actually taking care of...
Trust the experts, Joe.
They are the experts, right?
Welcome back to another episode of Careful Boys. Today we have with us Mr. Aram Choe.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
Officer.
It's Officer Aram.
Officer Aram Choe. You're out of the El Monte Police Department?
Yeah.
Did you grow up in El Monte?
No, my association with El Monte is that my dad had a video shop there for like 12 years. Just your VHS, standard porn section.
Oh, with the beaded curtain?
Yeah. I grew up fast, but I grew up really close. I lived in Alhambra forever.
Nice.
And,
Oh, SGV.
yeah. Went to San Gabriel High School and just wanted to stay in the area. My first agency was the LA County Sheriffs, and back then when you apply, you want to go with whoever the biggest, baddest agencies are, and it was either LAPD or the Sheriffs. And so, you don't know what you don't know until you're in, and it wasn't for me. It's easy to get lost at a large department.
What do you mean by like lost?
Because you could be the hardest working dude in the world, but unless you have a personal association with someone at the top, you could be completely overlooked.
A lot of politics.
Yeah, a lot of politics. And so I wanted to go to, I made a lot of friends in law enforcement, and I saw that at the smaller agencies, you get recognized, and its promotions are based on merit, and your reputation is based on merit. And when you go to an agency, like at the time when I went to El Monte, it was 160 officers, so everybody from the top down knew everybody's work product. And that was me. I just wanted to make a name for myself.
Well, in perspective, so people know, the LA Sheriff Department is like 40,000 or something? Or?
No, let's see. It's about 7,000 to 9,000 deputies.
Okay.
It's about the same as LAPD in terms of officers. But the big thing about the county is the county territory is huge, right? I mean, it goes all the way up to Lake Los Angeles, which is the border of San Bernardino and LA County in the desert, and it goes all the way down to the beach. And so, yeah, if you want variety, that's awesome, because you can, if you're tired of one station, you can go to the other. But, for me, I wanted to be invested in the community, and if I'm going to work somewhere, I want to know, generationally, you're this guy's son. I used to wrap up your dad back then, and he, if he ended up being a knucklehead, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, so.
And just for example, community-wise, we're talking like 75 million people.
So El Monte,
we're bad with numbers here. We always over.
That's okay. It's better over than under, right? So El Monte, there's 88 cities in LA County. El Monte is the 8th largest in terms of population.
Really, the 8th largest? I didn't think it would be that. Damn.
So that's the census population. So the census says, I forget, we're like 150,000 population.
Oh, that's a little bit.
But that when they ran the census, we have a large community of immigrants that avoided them. They thought that it was going to lead to INS or something. So
there's probably way more than the people that are registered.
Okay.
But geographically, the city's the size of a postage stamp. Very small. It's 10.5 square miles.
Wow.
So it's very densely populated. So the advantage to that is your backup is minutes away, right? As opposed to
that's cool.
a bigger city where you have to wait 5 minutes for your life and everything.
You know how you guys have an airport?
Yeah.
Does that complicate policing at all?
A little bit. We had a major pursuit a couple weeks ago. It was a carjacking that occurred in Azusa, which is 5 cities over.
Yeah.
But we have these cameras, and I'm sure you guys will want to talk about that later, but we have a camera system where if a plate is entered as a felony vehicle, it'll alert and it'll let the officers know, well, this car came through, it was just carjacked, came through our city, and an officer happened to be on top of it. So when you get to an airport, there's federal regulations, so we can't fly our airship over it. So we had to utilize drones.
Wait, your police helicopter can't over it?
That's why everyone knows if you're in a high-speed chase, drive towards the airport.
Yeah, it does complicate things. I mean, but with technology now, almost every police car has a drone. Right, we'll launch a drone.
Every police car has a drone?
Yeah. I mean, probably not LAPD and the sheriffs, but at agencies our size, like our patrol fleet, we have about 50 drones. And they're all, a lot of them are capable of going in buildings. We have one that's called the Loki.
What?
It's about that big, and we'll toss it through a window, and it'll break the window and breach that for us, and we can search. So we'll do that before we used to send dogs in. But now we'll send the low key.
It's just like Minority Report. You got the little creepy crawler guy.
Do you have to learn how to pilot it, or does it?
Yeah, so you have to get your FAA 107, which is the same written test that pilots have to take. And it's a big process because there's so many federal restrictions. Because these things can go as high as helicopters and airplanes.
I thought cops are dumb.
Yeah. we actually had a.
So they're not that dumb. They know how to fly all these things. FFA 5773.
Really, I mean, in a lot of the country, the minimum requirement is a GED to become a police officer.
Chee-hoo.
But in a lot, but at the same time, they're being compensated for the same thing. Like if you leave the state, cops make about a third of what I make, and I make a good living. You know, I'm elevated. I'm in management now. I'm a lieutenant.
Oh, you're one of the red tape guys.
Yeah. But I haven't forgotten what it's like to be a cop, right?
The red tape guys.
Thank you. I haven't forgotten.
I got my lieutenant up my ass right now.
And the great thing about departments our size is we can't get away with that bullshit, right? We can't. You do this, well, you lose credibility if you do that, right? Because you have had to
work.
do. Yeah, I made my bones, right? I did detectives, I did gangs. A lot of paperwork. I mean, 75% of law enforcement is paperwork, even from the bottom to the top.
No, yeah.
You better learn how to
I mean,
write.
that's why I was talking to him about spelling and reading.
But you got the advantage of Chat GPT now.
Well,
right?
now, I mean, if I pass it, I'm gonna be using that. But in the beginning, I'm like, yo.
Yeah, it's a real disadvantage. 'Cause that's why you see a lot of cops with degrees in California. It's not a requirement at a lot of agencies, but it is at a lot of agencies. But the proficiency test puts you on par with like attorneys. Because that's who your opposition is. When you go to court, your paper has to be bulletproof because you're going to have a law degree educated guy across from you tearing apart your report. And if it's not bulletproof, you're going to look like a fool up in the stands. And if you do, the jury's going to think you're not credible. So.
Oh, like the criminal's attorney.
Yeah. The defense attorney, they'll do everything. They'll look at your social media. They'll look at your past performance.
So they go after you.
Yeah, because
as much as they're going after the
right.
That's annoying.
Yeah, they want to discredit you. That's that's why a lot of cops avoid social media, and so the few of us that are public on social media,
evidence out for the taking. Huh?
Yeah, because some people can't handle an audience. They might put something. They might say one stupid thing, and that defense attorney is going to do some research. A good defense attorney, at least, is going to do some research.
Yeah.
And when you go up on the stand, they'll ask you, "Oh, okay, how long have you been a cop? What unit do you work? What's your education? Cool. So explain this comment," and it could just tarnish the entire investigation or on the prosecution side, and then you're not credible for the rest of your career.
Once they find out you're on this show, I think a lot of guys are going to walk.
Yeah. You got, as a cop, you got to be able to assimilate with everybody, right? So, I mean, the one advantage of being in LA County is no two people are alike, right? So you're going to talk to different groups, and I've been a cop for 25 years, and I talked to a lot of different groups. And the cities you work in change. Like El Monte's going through gentrification right now. Really? There's a predominantly Hispanic community, and well, the average house price in El Monte is like $750,000. Wow. The average house price in California is $906,000, I think, as of last month.
My dad used to own a house in El Monte, and he bought it for $170.
Oh, he came up.
He came up then, yeah.
But then the area by the border of Temple City and El Monte, that's not a bad neighborhood. Nice. And I can kind of see that area being like nice.
The people that live there are calling it like El Monte Heights, North El Monte.
Wow.
But you're right, because it borders Arcadia, and Temple City.
I can see the trickle down happening from there.
It's because a lot of the properties in El Monte are horse properties. So you have huge properties where there's one 1,200 square foot house on an acre, and
like Sarah Jessica Parker lives there.
What's that?
That's what you're saying, right?
I missed it.
Like Jennifer Garner lives there, or like Sarah Jessica Parker, like the chicks with horse faces.
The chicks with horse faces.
At the 9-minute mark, we like to get misogynistic.
Okay, got it. Oh man, I've been up since 3:30. I apologize. But good investors are gonna buy that property, level that house, and put like 3 or 4 on it, and flip their money 3 times. So.
What made you want to become a cop, like just from day one?
And how early? How early did you know? Like,
if you ask anybody from my family, they'll say it since I was a kid, because, like every little kid, I was an only child, but I had a lot of close cousins, and we played cops and robbers, and I wanted to be the cop. I'd even fold pieces of paper and put FBI and stuff on it. But the influence came. My dad and both his brothers were in the Army, and my grandfather was in the Army, so I lived, as you can imagine, a pretty regimented, disciplined household. And I was actually born in an army base in Korea.
What up, guys? Thank you for watching us for so long. If you like what we do, please support our Patreon. Joe, tell them what we have to offer.
So every week you get 2 videos. One never released director's cut, and another one 2 half for YouTube, Patreon only. Every freaking week you get that. And you get access to our Discord where you can come chat with us.
And ask us questions that become episodes here, because we're gonna answer them and we're gonna take it seriously, and we wanna give you the responses that you want. So come stay connected with us, join our Patreon, click the description below for full details. They were in Korean Army or American Army? American Army in Korea.
Yeah, my grandfather was the only one that served in the Korean military. He was in the Korean Navy. But he grew up in a time where it was Japanese occupied for a period, then the Americans came and liberated them, and so a period of time schooling was done in English. When he turned 17, he joined the Korean Navy, and the American military established posts out there, but they needed somebody that can speak the language. So my grandfather went in while in the Korean Navy and did a lot of translation work. And at the time they had a program called the KATUSA program, which stood for Korean Augmentation to USA, and that was his pathway to citizenship. So he was like, hey, I'm leaving the Korean Navy, I did my commitment, joined the U.S. Army through this program, and after a few years, he'll leave and become American. Well, he loved it so much, he stayed and became a career CID investigator, which is like their criminal investigation detachment, NCIS for the Army.
So military police?
Yeah, yeah, but the investigation side. So he wasn't an MP.
Like a detective in the military.
Yeah, so he was part of the 19th MP detachment, military police detachment, but the investigative arm of it.
Okay.
And then just the influence. I mean, back then Korea was really poor, but if you made an American Army salary, you were doing really good. And so when my dad and his brothers became of age, it's like, what are you gonna do? You can either work at a farm or join the military.
Because this was in Korea. Yeah. I see.
Yeah. So my dad was stationed in Korea. I met my mom there. I was born there. And
Were you born in Camp Mujik?
No, it doesn't exist anymore, but the base that replaced it is Fort McClellan, which I don't even know if still exists or not. But it was near Seoul. And
Is that where you translated at, Bart?
Camp Mujik was. I think Ryan's trying to pull a fast one over here.
Trying to link him with your job.
You're not Korean.
No, I'm not.
How did you translate?
It's a tricky story. I'll explain later. But it's about you. It's about you.
I already know.
You love that.
I already know. Somebody looked at you.
T-shirt.
Somebody looked at you and said, "You probably speak Korean."
Yeah. A guy that looked like Steve looked at me and was like, "Oh, he speaks Korean for sure."
You gotta play all your cards. Work every advantage.
Did you also join the military, or did you go straight
No,
to
so
police?
I wanted to. At 18, I was gonna enlist because I didn't have any. I wasn't a great student, and college wasn't on my cards. But my parents made typical Korean parents. You got to go to college. So I applied to Cal State LA, which was where everybody who
was
did-
where you
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Golden Eagle, woo woo.
So I met some friends, and a lot of them went the police route because in the early 90s we had Rodney King and the riots and stuff, right? So I graduated in 95. Like being a police officer was the last thing on anybody's minds. Police officers were enemy number one. Nobody wanted to be a cop.
Like it is now too.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels today with what was happening back then. So
Do you feel like it's worse now or worse then?
Well, having so I started in '99, my career in '99, and we couldn't do anything right.
That was a tougher time for Asians to join police.
There was only like a handful of us,
Yeah.
and now there's so many.
Yeah.
But in 2001, 9/11 happened, and you couldn't do anything wrong. I couldn't buy my own meals. I mean, if I was out at McDonald's just trying to do a pickup, I couldn't buy my own meals. We were like the most loved people in the world.
They're so patriotic, huh? Like, officer, can I buy your lunch?
It's sad that a tragedy like that had to bring our nation together, but it did.
Yeah.
And
We just need more tragedies.
but so I got a taste of that, right? Yeah, I got a taste of that, and so when 2013, 2015, all the St. Louis, George Floyd, all that stuff happened, it was a flashback to when I first started.
Also, for you, it started bad, but it got good after 9/11.
Yeah, so it got really good. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a good 10, 12-year run where we
Yeah.
couldn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But there's so much more now that's different now than it was back then. Back then, we didn't have laws that handicapped us. We could do police work. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard all over social media, and it's been around for a while, but, you can commit a petty theft. They elevated the petty theft, which used to be $500 or less, to $950.
$950.
So a lot of guys are going to the stores and buying stealing generators, and there's nothing they can do about it. We'll arrest them, but they won't get prosecuted because we have a liberal DA in LA County that won't.
Gascon.
We voted for him. We think that's tight.
Yeah. Well, you and I are gonna talk later.
I'll talk right now.
Wait, so you said you can arrest them, but you can't prosecute?
Yeah.
Well, that's not their job. Yeah.
But like,
We'll still do our job. I mean, it's a bad guy's job to do their thing, and it's our job to catch them, right? But it's really demoralizing for an officer to have to go through all that work. I mean,
Especially if it's the same guy you keep catching.
luckily there's provisions in place where if they're a repeat guy, and I mean the burden's long, right? Like we're talking like a dozen arrests, then they might do something about it.
Dozen times?
But it's really disheartening.
That's
when
how you end up with those rap sheets that are like pages
Yeah,
long.
exactly.
Well, you know most of those incidences like on like those Asian like activist pages where a lot of like old people were getting murdered or beat up or whatever, they always show the rap sheet of the person that should have been like in prison or like in an institution to get help, but they're off on the street and then they're randomly punching and stabbing people.
Yeah, I mean, we lost 2 officers last year at Almani on the same call, and the bad guy shouldn't have been out there. He had 2 strikes, and he was out because Gascon's liberal policies, and we responded to a domestic, and he ambushed him and shot 2 of my really good friends on duty.
God damn.
So on a personal level, I think when you're comparing how bad it was in the late 90s and how bad it is now, it's more impactful now because I've had 25 years of experience to develop relationships, not just with my coworkers, but with the victims. And I can relate so much to the victims because, I'm a victim survivor too. My dad committed suicide and my mom was murdered all within 3 years.
oh, what the?
And there's no justice behind it because the guy that killed my mom killed himself, right? So I can empathize with the public when they're victimized. And so when you catch these bad guys, I can't help but relate what happened to me personally to what happened to them. And I want to see the justice system do its thing. But it's hard when they ask me what's going to happen to them. And I have to look at them in the eye and tell them they're probably going to get released.
Yeah, damn.
But that what people don't understand the law, they go, why aren't the police doing their job? It's not the police. The police are arresting, they're doing their job. It's the prosecutor not doing their job and wanting to make them go to jail.
But then it's the people that voted that prosecutor, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of...
Well, people got bamboozled, I think, by those people because it's George Soros DA's getting locked in, right? It's his money that's provided. So there's beating up everybody's eyes with signs and campaign signs and slogans and shit like that. So they vote for these people because the money is what wins ultimately in these local races. So that's how it happens.
Or they'll campaign on other issues, and most of their funding's coming from George Soros.
Right.
Or whatever the agenda is, right? And it's happening all cities. Like, it's not just one city. Yeah.
So just to be clear on what happens, because I feel like a lot of people, when they know about the 950 thing and criminals steal and they get let out, what actually does happen? Do they get a citation? What's the thing that happens?
Yeah, so once we arrest them, we used to lock them up until their arraignment. Then they'll go to court within 48 hours, and the judge will decide based on our case if we have enough of a burden of evidence to move forward to a trial. And they're in jail during that entire time.
So they're off the streets during that whole time.
Yeah. But now they don't even get arraigned. If it's a petty theft, we give them a citation.
What is that?
A ticket. In lieu of jail time, it's a promise to appear.
So the ticket's just like, hey, like how we get a ticket for like speeding.
Yeah,
or
you'll get a
something.
court date eventually. And
So to put into like a practical example, like let's say someone breaks into my house, socks my mom in the face, steals her purse before that guy is put behind bars until the court date.
Yeah.
Now he'll just get a citation.
minus the break-in and minus the battery, because those are felonies, right? I
was like, damn.
But let's just say your house was empty. Someone breaks in because that's a burglary still, but someone steals. Let's just
Amazon package.
Yeah, steals that. So we do our job. We write the ticket. But what happens after that? What typically is supposed to happen is a DA is supposed to get that ticket and decide if they're going to file. Well, there is a directive from Soros that says we will not file on those. So driving without a driver's license, they won't file. If you have no insurance and somebody hits your car and they have no money, no insurance, they won't file.
What?
In LA County.
I wonder why.
paying for
I just don't understand why this agenda is happening.
I think it's look. we should look into how those people were raised and burden society with how they grew up and what they went through. And nobody ever talks about that, and it's so very important.
Do you have an inside look on why this agenda is even occurring? Or people do you know something that like people like us wouldn't?
Yeah, because I think to the outside it seems so counterproductive and backwards.
Yeah.
Working in the system, is there like, if you could, are you able to play devil's advocate in any way of why?
Because we've even had other cops here, and I straight up asked him like, why is that happening? And he was like, I don't know.
I had to beat it out of him, but I did.
I mean, the answer we're supposed to give is I don't know, right? There's a lot of politics.
Oh, that's probably why I said that.
And without getting too political, there's special agendas. You mentioned George Soros, and he has his agenda. He's not an American citizen, but he has interest in America. He finds value with the deterioration of America, and somehow he benefits from that.
That's how he made his money. He made his money devaluing other
Argentina,
all these currencies and all these
UK,
other places, and guiding them down.
And Argentina's a great example. El Salvador too. A lot of these countries are realizing what's happening thanks to the information age. Right? People are starting to do research. And when they find out the funding sources behind a lot of these, they're like, hey, that's not in our interest. It benefits one person or one group. So they're revolting. And if you look at El Salvador, MS-13 was a big problem all over the world. They voted in a new president who was really conservative and said, hey, if you're associated in any way with MS-13, you're going to be thrown in jail. And he locked them up and put them nuts to butts in really tight quarters and stuff. Yeah. And El Salvador is a beautiful country now, right? There's virtually no crime because when there's punishment on the horizon, you're going to think twice about committing a crime.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that's what stops it.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of going through that now. There's a candidate running against Gascon. His name is Nathan Hochman. He's a deputy DA, who had to live with all these directives that came from the top. And he used to be the Attorney General in California, and he was born independently wealthy, so he's the first viable candidate that can meet money for money. And he's raised the most money out of any candidate, independent of his personal contribution.
Get him.
What's the cat's name again?
Nathan Hochman.
So that's who we need to vote for, Nathan Hochman.
Nathan Hochman.
And the thing is this, regardless if you're liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, it's not about that. At the end of the day, victims, politics don't discriminate against victims.
I just don't want crime. I don't give a fuck left or right. I
just want to feel safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big advocate. I'm sure you agree with me. I'm a big advocate about protecting yourself. You can't rely on the cops, on a cop, but you can't rely on us. We can't be everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
And the best way to not be a victim is to equip yourself with more awareness training, more self-defense training. And jiu-jitsu itself gives you so much confidence that I've literally seen housewives start from day one, a year or two later, walk out with their heads up high. They're not afraid. They're not going to say, "Hey, walk me to my car" anymore. But they know they can handle it, at least to stave off an attack for as long as it takes to get back up there. So it's a great equalizer. It emboldens people, and even when I'm off duty, I'm not always going to expect the cops to be everywhere because they're not. We're severely outnumbered. We have 360 million people in the United States, and there's only like 800,000 cops to police the entire country.
And there's 75 million people in El Monte.
Getting there. After this, people are going to move to El Monte and crazy.
That's cool you said that. I never thought of jiu-jitsu that way. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I told you, dude. He doesn't believe in it.
The funny thing,
he thinks it's magic.
well, it's not funny, but every single officer that I spoke to that actually work, like the street and everything, they say the same exact thing, is I wish more people took matters into their own hands for self-defense, for being armed. And every person that I hear about, like, oh, we shouldn't have guns, aren't officers or people that work in violent situations. They're always people that are like either politicians or people that I don't know why.
That have never shot a gun, too.
Yeah, and they're the ones that are saying, but I'm like, if the police themselves are saying that I wish more citizens would have guns and do this, I'm like, why don't you listen to the people that are actually taking care of...
Trust the experts, Joe.
They are the experts, right?
No, let them go down. It's all good. They're gonna learn after. It takes a minute for them to learn.
It's mind-blowing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
that's cool, man.